In April 2025, a company announced it had done the impossible. After more than 12,000 years, the dire wolf was back from extinction. Three snow white pups, born in a lab, a species returned from a population of zero. The headlines were enormous, and they were everywhere at once. The world's first de-extinct animal, they said. Extinction undone. A creature from the Ice Age, walking again. Photos of fluffy white wolf pups flooded every feed on the planet within hours. The company gave them names out of legend. Romulus and Remus, the two males born on the 1st of October, and a female, Khaleesi, born the following January. It was the perfect story. An extinct predator, a secret lab, a scientific miracle caught on camera, except the story had a problem hiding in plain sight. Because if you look closely at those three pups, a very different picture began to appear. The animal in the photographs may not have been the animal in the headline, and the gap between the two is where the real story lives. Who made them and how? To understand what was really born that day, you have to understand who built it. The company is Colossal Biosciences, based in Dallas and Boston, founded in 2021 by the entrepreneur Ben Lamb and the Harvard geneticist George Church. Their ambition is not modest. They want to build the world's first factory for bringing back the dead, and the dire wolf was how they announced themselves to the world. The process began not with a wolf, but with two fossils. A single tooth, roughly 13,000 years old, pulled from the ground in Ohio, and a piece of skull, far older, recovered in Idaho. From these fragments, scientists read what they could of the ancient dire wolf's genetic code. Then they turned to the closest living relative that code had left behind, the ordinary gray wolves. A gray wolf, it turns out, is already about 99.5% genetically identical to the dire wolf. The two are close cousins on the tree of life. So the scientists took living gray wolf cells and rewrote a few small passages of their DNA, editing them to match the dire wolf where it counted most. That edited cell was grown into an embryo. The embryo was placed inside a surrogate, an ordinary domestic dog, and weeks later, a creature the world had not seen since the last ice age opened its eyes for the first time. It sounds, told that way, exactly like resurrection. But there is a single number underneath the whole achievement, and that number tells a completely different story. What actually changed? Here is the number the headlines left out. To turn a gray wolf into what they called a dire wolf, the scientists edited 15 gene variants across just 14 genes. 14. A gray wolf carries roughly 20,000 genes in total, so set those side by side. 14 changed, 20,000 untouched. What was born was not a rebuilt dire wolf. It was a gray wolf, overwhelmingly wearing a handful of ancient traits chosen to make it look the part. The white coat, the wider head, and the heavier builds. And when independent scientists saw the claim, many of them were blunt. These are not dire wolves, they said. They are genetically modified gray wolves. One paleontologist who studies the real animal put it as plainly as anyone. What we have, she said, is a mostly gray wolf that looks like a dire wolf. Colossal pushes back on this, and their argument deserves a fair hearing. The company uses a different definition of the word. If an animal looks like the species and acts like the species and can fill the same role the species once filled in its ecosystem, then for their purposes, you have brought it back. You do not, they argue, need every last strand of DNA to match. And so the fight was never really about wolves at all. It was about a single word and what it is allowed to mean. What does extinct even mean in a world where 14 edits can dress one animal as another? The empire behind it. Step back and the dire wolf gets smaller, because it was never the real goal. It was a demonstration, a single, headline-grabbing proof that the machine works. Colossal has been valued at around $10 billion, funded by a roster of famous names, from the filmmaker Peter Jackson to the athlete Tom Brady's. And the company is not chasing one extinct animal. It is running 5 de-extinction projects at the same time. There is the dodo, whose genome has now been sequenced. There is the Tasmanian tiger, the thylacine, a project the company says is running ahead of schedules. There is the great moa of New Zealand. But the true headline act, the animal everything is really building toward, is the woolly mammoth. The plan is staggering in scopes. Take an Asian elephant, the mammoth's closest living relative, and edit it into a cold-resistant giant. Then, release herds of them onto the Arctic tundra, where the company argues they could actually help slow climate change. As proof the science could scale up, Colossal first made something smaller and stranger. A woolly mouse, an ordinary lab mouse edited with mammoth genes so it grew a thick, shaggy coat. From a mouse, they say, to a mammoth. Live mammoth calves have been promised by 2028. It is the most ambitious biology project on Earth, and every single promise inside it raises one harder question the marketing tends to skip. The real cost. Here is that question, and it is the one that matters most. If people come to believe that we can simply rebuild lost species in a laboratory, do we quietly stop fighting to protect the ones that are still here? This is not a thought experiment. It has already happened. In a 2025 congressional hearing in the United States, a lawmaker pointed directly at the dire wolf while arguing to strip living gray wolves of their endangered species protections. The reasoning was exactly what scientists had feared. If we can just bring them back, why spend so much protecting them now? That is the danger the critics warn about above all others. Not the science itself, but the story wrapped around it, that a tale of resurrection could quietly become permission for extinctions. And yet, to be fair, the very same tools carry real and genuine promise. The same company also cloned 4 red wolves, among the most endangered animals left alive, with fewer than 24 remaining in the wilds. The technology that dressed a gray wolf as a ghost could also help save a species still clinging on. So the dire wolf never really came back. What came back instead was a question we still have not answered. When it comes to the dead we can imitate and the living we can lose, just because we can, does it mean we should? Next time, what if the mammoths actually make it?